Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Windy City Breakdown. I'm Andy Martínez, joined as always by my co-host Tony Andracki and Kyle Millinowisch. And we got a lot of Cubs to talk. It's an interesting time to talk about the Cubs. But Kyle, you had the great tweet from the Windy City Breakdown X Twitter account with the return of a certain someone to the Chicago Blackhawks. So I want to get started with that. Kyle, how pumped are you for the return of Nick? I mean, I was going to say Nikolai Javibulin, but I meant Patrick Kane.
You're such a dick. I was late to the recording here because I was sitting down watching Patrick Kane highlights nonstop and didn't realize what time it was. I can't stop smiling. Every one of my friends' group chats are just blowing up with old highlights and how excited we are. Some people online who aren't Hawks fans are complaining about the amount they're paying them, but the Hawks have sucked for so long, and they're probably not going to be like that good this year. And plus the salary cap in hockey's going up. So, I mean, I know that's not your guys' area of expertise, but $8 million a year for 2 years for the Hawks is nothing. Pair him with Bedard. Oh my God. It's heaven on earth. Honestly, I can't stop smiling. It is the absolute, it's the best day of my life.
Well, Bedard won't even be back for the first month or two of the season, right?
Yeah, he'll be out probably until early November. He had shoulder surgery a couple weeks ago, which makes the Kane signing even more important. Like they needed another top six winger, especially when Bedard is there to pair with him or even on the power play. The Hawks have so many young guys, right? They have, I'm going to name guys that you probably have never heard of. So like Anton Frondel, Roman Kanserov, he's a rookie from Mother Russia. Frank Nazar.
Yes.
And that's just on their forwards, Oliver Moore, another guy, Ryan Green. And then on the back end, they have like Artem Leshanov. They just traded and signed Bowen Byram. Sam Renzel on the back end.
Nope.
These all sound like creative player names to me.
Alec Vlasic, he's from Wilmette.
Sure.
But I was thinking of the Cubs comparison. And so you brought up, we were talking about it before, and you brought up like Rizzo coming back, which makes sense. I think the perfect timeline would be like the 07 Cubs re-signing Sammy to come back and be like their four hitter, where it's like the team is young. I shouldn't say young because obviously they weren't like that young then. Maybe it'd be like the 2014 Cubs signing like 07 Sammy. I know we're crossing a couple of eras there, but there really is no like perfect comparison. This guy is, I was looking up highlights. He has so many overtime winners in the playoffs. It's unbelievable. Obviously the Cup winner in 2010. It's just like he is the most clutch Blackhawk. 3-time Stanley Cup champ. He's won the Conn Smythe is like the playoffs MVP, not just the Stanley Cup final MVP. Goes throughout the whole playoffs. He's won an Art Ross regular season MVP trophy. That is, he's got 446 goals with the Hawks in the regular season. He's, I think, 240 something points away from being the all-time point leader in Blackhawks history, which would be like 80 points for the next 3 seasons, which is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but point per game isn't like not attainable. It'd be like equivalent to like 30 home runs a year in baseball, I'd say. It's the Hawks these past couple of years have been in the doldrums. I feel like I'm boring Tony with all this Blackhawks talk. He's about to fall asleep.
No, I was thinking about the 30 homer comparison. I'm fully awake. I got my coffee, and I was actually marveling at the word doldrums, and I was trying to make sure that in my head I was like, did Kyle use it correctly? And I was like, I think he actually did.
Did I?
Are they a playoff team now, or is it like not? Are they like a fringe playoff team?
I bet you their odds to make the playoffs are still like plus 180. And that would be, I feel like that would be generous.
35-40% chance.
Maybe 30% chance.
Okay.
Listen,
it's still exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It gives the fans something, like you said, to watch. Exactly. It's important for the team until Bedard comes back. When he does come back, it'd be cool to watch them play together. And I agree with you. I feel like the Sammy comparison isn't even enough because you're talking about a guy who won a championship. That's why like the Rizzo or Javi or whatever type of comparison would be more apt, right? Is because they'd be coming back to the Cubs where they won a championship. And, and that's where like these guys are etched in Chicago lore forever. I mean, everybody will always remember Patrick Kane, at least anybody who was alive in 15, right? Their last cup. So, yeah, I feel like that's a huge factor. Like it's going to put fans in the seats and make people watch games and tune in, even if they don't end up making the playoffs and they're not super relevant. So it's a great move.
Yeah, I mean, and it was between allegedly it was between the Hawks and Buffalo, where that's his actual hometown team, and Buffalo was a goal away. They were Game 7 overtime. They lost, but they were a goal away from going to the conference finals last year. Obviously, a team that's much further along. They're a little more strapped with this under the salary cap, so the Hawks were able to offer him. I mean, like last year, he was making $3 million in Detroit, and then he got a $5 million bump to come to the Hawks. Like, obviously, the Hawks had to overpay, but this is home for him. I mean, you can see the reaction on social media. You don't see a bad tweet.
I know that I'm not an NHL hockey expert, but Kyle, can you just explain to me in quick layman's terms, how is Patrick Kane making just $3 million a year? And why are people freaking out that it's $8 million a year? I mean, that's nothing.
Well, and so the hockey salary cap is going up, and the $8 million for a year for the Hawks specifically is nothing. Because they have so many young guys. Yeah, they're going to have to re-sign. Well, they re-signed Bedard to $15 million a year. They have that Nazar on their contract for $7 million a year. I believe they have like a couple of their big guys under contract. So to be honest, $8 million. I don't know why people are freaking out. It's nothing for specifically for the Hawks. It's nothing. Yeah, maybe next year they'll go and get it might be I don't even want to say limited at all, but like if they wanted to get a big time free agent next year, maybe they're slightly limited for one season, but it's a 2-year contract. So and even if he re-signs after that, the Hawks hopefully are in a better spot. So then he's like, oh, okay, I want to stay here. I'll go back to that $3 million, but that's what they needed to pay to entice him back. And I mean, I don't blame him if he's going to not chase a cup, but come back to like his roots. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice little incentive, an extra $4 or $5 million a year. Thanks for coming. Keep the change. It's a great deal for the Hawks. I don't care what anybody online says. And more than just like the money standpoint, veteran leadership. I feel like that's so underrated. All these young hockey players growing up, who didn't want to be Patrick Kane? The cup winner in 2010, like he's an idol to these guys. So and not to mention like the fan aspect. Yeah, I'm a sicko. I watch a ton of Hawks games when they suck. And it's like, they're just so bad. But now it's like, I mean, you're going to draw the casual fan back in. You're going to start selling out the United Center again. There's just so many benefits to bringing Patrick Kane back, and not even to mention just like the general PR aspect of it. Like Hawks fans love Patrick Kane. Besides Dan Bernstein, Hawks fans love Patrick Kane.
Yeah, it's true. You say casual fan, like literally no one more perfect than me. Like I'm going to be curious and like at least be checking in on what's like. If you ask me what they did last year, I would have no idea. I know Connor Bedard had a pretty good season and then signed the extension, but like other than that, like
they suck. I don't know much about the second worst record.
Right, like I don't know anything about the Hawks because they're kind of irrelevant right now. But like this, as you pointed out, brings them into relevancy. So it's a fun signing. Like I'm curious to see how it is, and like yeah, sign me up to watch Connor Bedard play with Patrick Kane in 2 months or 3 months into the season on the same line. I think that'll be fun.
Exactly. And I feel bad because I was going to get ready for the podcast with all the topics beforehand, but then the Hawks signed Kane. So I did zero prep for the show. So you guys are going to carry it and I'm just going to smile.
No different than normal.
Yeah. What else is new? Kane.
All right. Let's get into the Cubs stuff. Tony, you were at Wrigley Field the last 2 days.
Yes.
And you wrote this down as you learned something that you want to share with the class. So yes. The floor is yours. Hit me.
Well, I feel like this could be a semi-regular segment on this pod where either Kyle or I learn something. Figure Andy's not, because Kyle can attest to this. Andy knows everything, so he has nothing to learn. But I learned from Jay Cohen of AP this week did you guys know that you cannot challenge ABS challenge when a position player is on the mound? I found that out on Tuesday night when the Tigers had 2 position players, and the Cubs were pretty upset with a couple calls. I forget who was at the plate. Was it PCA maybe? Where these
PCA had one,
2 of them.
There was a couple. Justin Dean and Seiya both had a couple, or 1 or 2 each. Where so you can't challenge, which I like that. I think that's fair. But it also leads to some crazy ass calls like we saw in Tuesday night's game. So I just thought that was a really fascinating wrinkle.
Hand up.
I knew
not.
That. Go ahead. You did know that. I did not know that.
I did know that.
Megan Montemuro shared the screenshot on Twitter X of the PCA at bat from Baseball Savant, and it's like there's a ball like literally right down the middle. It's called the ball.
Yeah.
And then there's a ball. There's the 2 balls like way above the zone that are called strikes. It's like, what is the zone? And like I get it why you don't challenge it, right? Like if a position player is pitching, like let's move this game along, like let's wrap it up, let's everyone go home. But like these at bats still count, right? Like for players, like maybe not so much for PCA because he's got his contract, but like if I'm a player that's going to arbitration and I can tack on 1 more home run, or I can tack on another on base percentage or boost up my on base percentage a little bit. All these things matter in arbitration, right? At the end of the season, when the difference of making an extra 100,000, 200,000 is there. So like I see both sides to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago that Dansby hit a grand slam off of a position player, right? His 3rd homer of the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that matters. But I will say the context for, like, the PCA at bat is you have to keep in mind these were lobs, genuine lobs.
Yeah.
36 miles an hour. So that's how the umpire has it all over the place, because the, like, pitch tracking, it's difficult to have it because you have this high arcing, this loop coming in, and where exactly does it cross? It might seem like it's more of a strike when it's higher up, when it's crossing higher up, and then the pitch that's right down the middle is not a strike. It's like slow pitch softball, but as you guys know from playing, and a lot of people probably listening or watching know, is slow pitch softball, it's where the ball lands. It lands on the plate or on the mat, that's a strike. It's not where it crosses. But in Major League Baseball, it's where it crosses. So they were just completely thrown off. And so it was really, when Zach McKinstry, former Cub, is out there throwing 36 miles an hour, it's hard to track pitches. It'd be incredibly difficult to tap and do ABS challenge too, given that you don't know exactly where it's crossing. But there's just an interesting wrinkle, and I think that I like that they thought that far ahead. At least Major League Baseball did, to say no challenges here. I do agree with you, Andy, that these at bats count, so it's maybe a little bit shooting yourself in the foot with it, but I just think it's an interesting wrinkle.
Were you gonna say something, Kyle? Sorry, I know Tony cut you off, but I didn't want
I can't stop smiling about Patrick Kane. All right, I literally just saw something else of just another highlight, and I got sidetracked, so I don't even remember what I was gonna say. Yeah. This is what I was gonna say. I think the position players shouldn't be able to pitch until the 8th inning. It sucks when there's 2 innings left in their like Zach McKinstry. Was he in the 7th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, yeah.
This is. I think Boog was saying it on the broadcast. He's like, this isn't even competitive anymore, and it's not.
Right.
You just get throwing in the towel, and it's like, yeah, I get it. You obviously have to play 9. There's people paying for it. I'm sure a lot of gambling money is infected by it, but I don't know. I feel like they shouldn't be able to pitch more than 1 inning. It just seems like bullshit.
Well, what's funny is if PCA in the top of the 7th, I think it was, if he didn't make that great catch at the wall, that would have led to at least 2 runs. And it's, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 8 runs that you have to be down or up, yep, position player. So that would have led to 2 runs. So it would have been only a 7 or lower deficit, depending on how the rest of the inning played out. So AJ Hinch, I think Craig Counsell even said this on the radio on 670 or 104.3 yesterday, that AJ Hinch was probably happy that PCA caught it because it meant that he could save more bullpen arms, because they were already hurting. I mean, they made, I was on the other side for AP in that game, and Hinch was talking about how they needed length out of Framber Valdez because on Sunday, Casey Mize left the game early, their starter, so their bullpen was used a lot. Then they used a bunch of relievers on Monday's extra inning game, and they're like, we need Framber Valdez to go deep. He didn't go deep. He went 2/3 of the inning. And it was funny. I was telling you guys that Hinch was joking around about it because he's like, well, yeah, I'd love for him to go deep, but the other guys got to cooperate. He's like, they got to get some early counts, and they got to just roll over on some balls. And, it's funny that he says that, and then sure enough, Framber Valdez has the worst start of his career, the shortest start of his career, tying tying his previous low. I guess that would be in that case. So, yeah, it adds an interesting wrinkle. I guess I disagree though, Kyle. I feel like it's fine for position players to pitch in the 7th inning, because in that case, like the Cubs aren't batting in the bottom of the 9th, so it's sort of the 8th inning anyways. Like you're only gonna have 2 innings of a position player pitching. Um, but I think it adds up. Like if you're a fan, there were definitely more cheers in like the 7th and 8th innings, and people were locked into every pitch when position players were on the mound than the couple innings prior, I'd say.
Yeah, it was funny on the broadcast. Boo was talking about it, and I don't think he's a fan of it. I feel like I kind of agree with Boo where it's the the non-competitive stuff. And Sut was on the call, and he's like, "Well, how many position players? How many times do you think a position players pitched this year? 10?" And Boo kind of just like laughed right in his face. He's like, 10? What are you, a moron? It's probably like 100.
Yeah,
it's been a lot.
I mean, as soon as I was just gonna say, I feel like any game nowadays, the second it hits 8 runs and it's the 8th inning, it's like just bring in a position player because you want to save your bullpen for the next day and beyond.
There's something what is the earliest? Go ahead, Kyle.
I would say, what is the earliest in a game a position player has pitched? Has somebody pitched in like the 6th inning, the 5th?
I don't know.
No,
is there a way to even this is a you question.
I think there's a rule on it that it has. I think it's the 7th. That they can't come in. Let me see.
It would be interesting, like if it was 14-0, or I'm thinking back to that game.
Well, yeah, because then it becomes a broken rule, right? Where it's like, I mean, part of the benefit of blowing a team out, right, is like you then have to burn through their pitching staff, which if it's the beginning of the series, you burn through their bullpen, and it helps you in game 2, game 3, potentially game 4 of a series. Whereas like if you're down 14-0 in the 2nd inning, you bring a position player, like, well, that helps the team that you're beating because then their bullpen saved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like
so the rules,
Craig always talks about, like sometimes. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, so the actual rules on MLB.com. Anytime at least one of these criteria is met, game is an extra inning, so you can do it at any time in extra. The team trailing by at least 8 runs at any point, and the team is winning by at least 10 runs in the 9th inning. So you can't go up by like 15 runs and throw a position player out there for the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. And yeah, conceivably, Kyle, you can do it in like as early as like the 3rd or 4th. I thought there was like a limit on what inning you could do it, but supposedly there's not.
Well, like I was thinking about, like Craig always talks about sometimes after losses where he's like, yeah, we were able to get into a bullpen, like especially like first game of the series, and it's like that's something that's I feel like is often very overlooked by fans, where it's like, yeah, you might have lost game 1 of the series and you're pissed off, but if you're down by like 7 in the 2nd inning, let's say hypothetically, and you cut it to 3 runs, and you keep it a 3-run deficit throughout the rest of the game, like yeah, you lost, but like think about it, that team is now using their high leverage bullpen reliever in the 6th inning and the 7th inning and the 8th inning and the 9th inning, and therefore like they're going to be pitching on a back-to-back in game 2 if they needed, or they're going to be, and if they are, then they're down for game 3. So like you have a trickle down effect of like there's so much benefit to trying to keep the game close. So like you're not going to win every game, but being able to keep the game close has a trickle down effect of like okay, now you have a better chance of winning game 2 or game 3, and I think that's what's often overlooked, and I think that's why it's so hard to sweep teams, because if you win the first 2 games of a series, you think about it, it's probably a close game. You probably use your bullpen, your high leverage guys. Well, game 3, you've got them pitching back to backs, like they're going to be down for game 3. So like it's hard to sweep because now you're going to your C or D level leverage guys. So yeah, it's I mean it's trickle down effect, and I think that's why like the position player thing kind of saves some of these bullpens for sure. Tony, you also had a question for the group, so hit me. Yeah, this is like your day.
Yeah, so I was just, as I was coming up with some topics for the podcast, I was thinking about it because at Wrigley the last couple of days, talking with some of the other media members, at what point do you guys get locked in to NFL season starting? I figured this might be a good barometer because Kyle's probably a sicko that's been obsessed with this for a while. Andy, maybe you're a little bit different category, but it's like, we're talking to former colleagues, Matt Danielowitz and Alex Aguilera, like their Bears training camp starts next week. And, like Bears coverage begins pretty much on a daily basis, like next week through whenever they're knocked out of the playoffs. So but it's just like interesting to me. And I see like some of my fantasy football leagues are being like reactivated and stuff again. And I'm like, man, I have like not paid attention to the NFL hardly at all really since like the draft, which was 3 months ago. So I was curious, you guys, like, before we get more into like Cubs talk, like when do you guys start getting locked into the NFL season? For me, it's not till like my fantasy draft start in like mid to late August.
I think next week when training camp starts, end of July. It really is.
But see, I think training camp is kind of like spring training, where like that first week you're like, oh man, like look at this guy who came into the best shape of his life and like looks great, and then like the second week of training camp you're kind of like, at least for me, and then maybe again maybe you're not like this guy. It's like all right, who cares? Like how many times can I see them running a drill, or like it's weird because like, oh, Caleb Williams got picked off. Like look at that great interception by whomever. Well, it's like, was that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Or if Caleb Williams throws like a really great pass, conversely, it's like, well, it's just like so weird, and it just becomes redundant, like spring training, where like after the first week, you're like, all right, let's get to when it matters.
Yeah, honestly, I completely agree. And it's there's some storylines that come out of training camp or preseason that are interesting, but I guess probably to your point, Tone, it like really getting interested. I mean, you don't get excited for the regular season until after the final preseason games are over, because that's usually when a lot of the fantasy drafts are happening. And it's like you're a week away from the regular season then. So there's like, the initial peak interest, the storylines, but it's not, especially now that guys don't play in preseason games.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Did Caleb played in one preseason game last
played
year,
a half.
Yeah.
Right. He played a half, right?
I don't even know if it was a full half.
Yeah.
It was like a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
a
couple of series. I don't believe it was a full half, but yeah.
Oh, it was such a good quarter though.
I can't tell if you're serious or not.
It was, dude. Look it up against the Bills. They absolutely.
I believe you. No, I just wasn't sure if you're kidding or not.
He was probably watching those highlights before the Patrick Kane highlights.
August 17th last year. Look it up. The Cubs beat the Pirates that day on a Sunday.
Okay.
I'm not gonna look it up. I just assume you're right.
Yeah,
but to your answer, I will. To answer your question, Tony, it's definitely like right around fantasy draft time, and like right before week 1, and that's kind of when I'm tuning in, I guess.
That's fair.
I can't stop smiling about Patrick Kane. I can't. I know you guys are gonna be pissed off with me at the end, but
I'm looking up the.
I'm happy you're happy, Kyle.
Also, here, real quick, going back, I want to go back to the position player thing. Since I'll say like the early 90s, which position player, like purely or strictly a position player only, not somebody like Rick Ankiel, who's a position player or a pitcher that went to position player, or I think his name was Anthony Ghost, who tried to become. I think he was a position player, then came back as a pitcher. Which position player has the most pitching appearances and how many? I should say how many. You'll never guess the name. I will, because he was a 2019 Oriole. Not a big deal. But how many appearances do you think this specific player had?
31.
Ooh, that's a lot. Not that many. That's how
14.
many Anthony Ghost had, though. How many, Andy?
14.
Yeah, 14. Hanser Alberto.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to guess Jonathan VR when you said 2019 Oriole.
Yeah, legend.
Well, there's somebody with the Diamondbacks, I think, that made like 6 appearances before May this year or something, I believe.
This year?
It was something, I thought it was this year, that some like position player, I might have the team wrong, and maybe I even end up the year wrong. They all kind of blend together, especially once you have kids and you was tired for 3 years straight.
Yeah, I don't see anybody that had, like, Cody Clemens has 13 in his career, not this year.
Yeah.
It's funny, Zach Short has 7 career pitching appearances. He's probably played in like 41 games.
Well, that's probably, I mean, he's the perfect guy for it, because you don't want to burn out your catcher who has to throw 180 times a game. And you want to throw like one of the last guys on the roster, but also a guy who probably has, a little sense of humor, doesn't take himself super seriously, maybe wasn't in the game previously or whatever. Yeah.
Garrett Stubbs has 12. So, yeah, I mean, I can't find anyone. I feel like a guy like Ildemaro Vargas would have been somebody who's like just in there. Especially, I'm thinking specifically the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
But I don't see him on this list at all.
Kyle, to go back to your point, the Cubs did beat the Pirates 4-3 on August 17th, 2025.
What was the Bear score? 38-3.
Yeah,
I do want you to look that up.
38-3. 38-0.
Oh,
Bills.
Odemaro Vargas does have 7 career pitching appearances, so maybe it was him.
No, it was James McCann. He pitched 4 times before May 2026, which tied the modern MLB mark.
Really? So like March and April, he had 4 pitching appearances?
Yeah, and I guess that tied an MLB record.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I
didn't know he was still in the league.
Yeah. And he was a backup catcher, so it even goes against what I was saying.
Yeah.
Idiot.
All right, and then Tony, you brought this up on Twitter too. Yes. I think it was on the first day of the series against the Tigers. What do you consider batting around in baseball, and how about striking out the side? So, Kyle, I'll start with you, and I'll start with batting around. What do you consider batting around? Is it the 9th guy getting a turn, or is it the guy who let off the inning has to come around and bat?
No, isn't it just 9? I did see you tweet that. Was there a lot of discourse in your replies?
There is. It's a surprisingly hot button issue. I feel like with baseball fans and maybe not quite as much media. There are people like our guy Eugene and Russ Dorsey. They're on the wrong side of history, right? Like they both feel like you have to hit 10, and I mean they're wrong, and that's fine. They can be wrong. But yeah, I think who was it? Like Mark Feinsand from MLB.com tweeted back at Russ and was just like it's Elias Sports Bureau says that batting around is when every guy in the lineup hits. So whether it's the leadoff hitter, the number 1 hitter starts the inning, and the number 9 hitter, who was it? It was Alcantara the other night, batted in the same inning. That is batting around. You don't have to have 10 guys hit in the same inning.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like Craig Counsell was talking about the lineup construction is like, it looks like a circle, right? Where it's just like when it's flowing, it's like it's a circle.
Yeah.
If you think about it like that, it's 1, and I'm making a visual for those listening. It's like 1 at the top, and if you think about it as a clock, like 9's all the way around at the back around. That's the circle, right? Like that's around. You don't have to go. You don't have to keep going to make it round. Like
yeah.
So that's it's 9. It's not. I don't know why it is a hot topic discussion, because like to bat around, like you just need to bring the 9 guys in the lineup up.
Well, if you have another guy starting again, that's just a new circle that you're starting. So like if you're using that same thing, if the guy who led the inning off is hitting again, that's the start of a new circle. And if it's not, it doesn't make sense, because you would go like whatever 10/9 of a circle, and then you would start,
right?
And you're like, and then all of a sudden the rest of your subsequent circles are all fucked up. That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. So it's 100% 9. I mean, if anyone's listening and it's like has a really strong argument to 10, like I'm all ears for it, but
there are a lot of people, and that was like
yeah, I know, but like I you're not convincing me. Like, sure, give me all your arguments you want, but like the definition, it's 9.
I think it's 9. I never even considered 10. That doesn't make sense. There's 9 guys in the order. Everybody bats. Right.
It's funny how much like people, because it's like there's so many things in baseball, and that's part of why I love baseball. Is there's so many things like this where you can like. They're the fun aspects, like Kyle, you were talking about being on a bachelor party and just throwing out guys' names for 4 hours. There's like that, and there's so much history, and we can talk about the position player pitching. There's like so many different nuances that like these other sports don't have. And then something like that where like, there's not really much in other sports that are comparable. So I think that's really cool. And then Chris Kamka, former colleague at Marquee, brought up what is striking out the side. And I agree with him wholeheartedly in that too, is that like, you have to strike out. You face 3 batters, you strike it off 3 batters. You can't face 7 batters and 4 guys get hits, and then you strike out 3 guys. That's not striking out the side. You face all 3 guys, you strike out the side.
What if you strike out 4, and one of them is they get on base?
A drop strike.
I mean, that's still striking out the side. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think so too.
I agree.
You get credit for.
I will say that one. That one, my only stipulation is so I think at Wrigley Field, I think other ballparks do this. If you strike out the side, it's like when at Bulls games, when you scored 100 points, you get a free Big Mac, and the Bulls won. At Wrigley Field, they have like you get a free Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich if a pitcher strikes out the side, and they count it as just 3 strikeouts in the inning. So in that situation, I will count striking out the side as whatever, because it's a free chicken sandwich. But other than that, like proper definition, it is 3 batters, 3 strikeouts. in an inning, that is striking out the side. But for purposes of a free
Chick-fil-A sandwich on the line, you change your opinion on everything.
Yeah. You wouldn't
stand your ground, man. Stand for what you believe in.
A free chicken sandwich is a free chicken sandwich. Just saying.
I
agree. Good debate. Let's get into like actual Cubs talk. Like
yes.
We're pretty deep into this conversation. We really haven't talked about the Cubs. We're recording on Thursday. We're about, what is it, like 10 days or 9 days away
11.
from the trade deadline? 11. Okay, yeah, my math couldn't do the math. I apologize. But we're about 11 days away from the trade deadline. Tony, I'll start with you. What is the perfect path at the trade deadline for these Cubs who, as we've talked about multiple times, are kind of a weird team?
Yeah, they are. And Andy, you know exactly where I'm coming from on this because I had you, read through, kind of check my work on an article I'm working on for Bleacher Nation. But yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and I think like to think about it from like the perfect path for the Cubs at the trade deadline is not the video game dream path, right? It's like that would be ideal, sure. Like in a world where there are barely any consequences, and maybe there aren't at this deadline as much as in years past, because you might be trading guys and there is no and impacting your 2027 hopes, and there is no season in 2027, or there's a significantly shortened season. Like it's a weirder trade deadline than in past seasons. But yes, in a absolute ideal dream world, the Cubs would trade for Tarik Skubal and Mason Miller and whoever else that they want. But I think like realism is important, and there is a perfect path, and that means possibly not parting ways with guys like Matt Shaw and Moises Ballesteros, and maybe even a Jackson Wiggins or Josiah Hartshorn as well. Like some of these guys that are their top prospects. Like, and I think it's pretty clear to me. I think it's 2 to 3 relievers. I think it's at least one starting pitcher, and I would put my eggs in the basket of I'm going to go for a starting pitcher who will absolutely start in a playoff series, even if you're a 3-game wild card, which there's still 7 back of the Brewers. So I think the 3-game wild card makes sense, and possibly even starts game 1. So I think that's where you focus your attention. And then I do think they need another right-handed bat. I mean, you can't. Matt Shaw sure should be coming back, but you can't like be in a situation where the only right-handed bat off a bench or whatever is your other catcher, like, or you're going up against a left-handed pitcher, and you have Justin Dean or Kevin Alcantara playing and starting because you don't want to have Miguel Amaya DHing and Carson Kelly catching. Like they need more depth. Absolutely, I think on the right side. So my thought is Kevin Gausman, I think, is like the ideal guy. Freddy Peralta also. If the Cubs came away with one of those two to enhance the rotation, to me, both guys would instantly like come in at number 1 in the rotation right now. Would be the team's ace, the game 1 starter. And I think there's upside for more. They're both kind of having down seasons. And then I think there's 2 relievers, and there's a bunch of relievers that should be available. The Mets have like 4 or 5 guys, and they're clearly in sell mode. So I think you have to get multiple relievers. You don't know. Mayton might not pitch again this year. You don't know if Ben Brown or Justin Steele will be factors in the bullpen. And Palencia, like, I don't know about you guys, but I think when it's an elbow injury and you're going to end up missing at least 2 months at some point in the season, and you were on the IL earlier this year with a different issue, I don't know how much you can count on him either. So it's going to be all about pitching. We know that. But I think you go all in. You get a guy like Gausman or Peralta, and then you get 2 to 3 middle to like late inning guys, and really, really bulk up that bullpen too, because you can get away with a lesser rotation in the playoffs if you have a more enhanced bullpen.
Do you have specific names for
you want some names?
I do want names.
He's got names.
I have a bunch. I didn't want to. I was worried about talking too long, which I guess how often do I do that anyways? But I got plenty of names. Yes, thank you. So my guy is, I think Brian Abreu on the Astros would be like an ideal fit, because he's about to be a free agent. And this is my thought, right? I'm not like saying sources are saying the Cubs are close. I'm Brian Abreu. I think if I were like Jed and Carter, I'd be kicking down the door trying to get a guy like Brian Abreu. He was like an elite reliever, late inning reliever for like 3 or 4 years. This year he was down a bit, but that was really just a bad start to the season. From like mid-May or late May on, he's had like a ERA just over 3. He's righted the ship a bit, and he's a guy who's has some closing experience, late inning like setup guy. gets a ton of strikeouts. So I think he would be perfect. He's also a righty, which I feel like they kind of have a decent amount of lefty options, especially if Hoby Milner comes back healthy and Justice Steele is in the bullpen. But, Adrian Morejon, did I pronounce that right, Andy?
Morejon.
Yeah.
Morejon. Yep. Mason Miller would be awesome for sure. But Morejon is a free agent at the end of the year, and he's a lefty who can dial it up to almost 100. We saw him in the playoffs last year. He can get more than 3 outs. He can get a bunch of ground balls and strikeouts. I think those two are like at the top of the list. But there's other guys like AJ Minter, Brooks Raley. These are two guys on the Mets, two lefties that are free agents at the end of the season. And then, even more, if you want more, Kyle, I got Yennier Cano, your Orioles guy, Garrett Whitlock, Luke Weaver, Anthony Bender are 4 other guys that I thought of that are like late inning. They have late inning experience.
Is Luke Weaver a free agent after this year?
He is not. So all 4 of those guys I just mentioned are signed through at least 27. Weaver has a pretty substantial deal too, but all 4 are pitching really well this year and have late inning experience. So it might cost a little bit more for them, but either way, I think, shopping in a perfect world, I think the Cubs get like 2 to 3 of guys of that caliber, whether it's from that group of 8 I mentioned or somebody kind of in that mix. Jeff Passan and ESPN had Morejon as the 29th best player available, and I think the 3rd best reliever available at the deadline. So like the cost for him might be a bit more, but all these other guys should be available. I mean, I mentioned 1, 2, 3 Mets in there, and they have even others as well, like who very likely could be available. So there should be a pretty robust relief pitcher market. And if you're the Cubs, like even going out and bringing Andrew Kittredge back would be, I think, an improvement over like Trent Thornton, Tyler Ferguson, Gavin Hollowell. Like these guys have been pretty good success stories, but I feel like Kittredge is a better bet than any of those 3 down for the rest of the season.
So that was, you mentioned Yennier Cano from the Orioles, and the 2 guys that I was thinking about was former Cubs Kittredge, and Jason Adam on the Padres. The Orioles are only 3 games back of the second wild card. I mean, they're 3 games under with only 1 team ahead of them in the Mariners. Do you think they're a team? I mean, that's like the $1 million question. Like, who sells, who doesn't?
Yeah.
I think that's why we're not going to be seeing deals until August 3rd at I think the deadline's at 4 or 5 p.m. Like you're not going to be seeing deals until August 3rd at like 2 p.m. because I mean, as we saw with the Red Sox were 2 weeks ago, we're dead in the water, and it's like Aroldis Chapman and Sonny Gray, and you start looking at some of these names that like could be great additions for the Cubs or any other team that's buying, and they rattle off a 15-game winning streak, and they're not selling, right? Those guys are off the table, and I think that's the big thing, right? Like the Orioles are a good example, right? Where who's to say they don't go on a 9-game winning streak or something like that, and get back into it, and it's like, well, suddenly those guys don't become available. In the AL, that's a huge difference.
It is too, and the Astros. So I talk about like Brian Abreu, but there's a couple other. I mean, Josh Hader is one listed by Pat.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I think it was like Chapman, Hader, and then Morejon on the ESPN list. But the Astros are 4 under 500. They're 50 and 54. That looks like a team that would be selling. But in the AL, and especially in the AL West, they're only 2 out of the division. Like this has been a terrible season for the Astros. But they are only 3.5 out of the wild card and 2 out of the division.
And they have Yordan Alvarez, which is like the kind of game-changing hitters that like maybe like a handful of teams have, right? Like they have what and Imai, the Japanese pitcher, is looking like he's coming into form, or at least in his first start after the All-Star break, he looked really good. Like it's a really interesting team that like, yeah, who's to say that they're playing the White Sox this weekend? Like who's to say they don't take 2 out of 3? And it's like, well, why should they sell, right? Why should Brian Abreu become available? Why should Josh Hader become available? And that's an owner, Jim Crane, who's like clearly been like his quote, I think, was something along the lines of like, the window's always going to be open in Houston. Like they're not, unless things really derail, they're not going to be really trying to sell, whether or not that's the right move for their franchise or not. But like this is, and the GM, I believe, is James Click is I believe is entering his like last year of his contract. So like these are all big things that like cloud what a team's going to make, right? In a vacuum, you would say like sell, They have a negative run differential. Like, this is not a situation of a team that can make a run. But when you combine the factors of the AL's very mediocre this year, you're 2 games out of the playoffs. You have a GM with, that's kind of on the hot seat, and an owner that doesn't want to sell or concede. That changes things, and every situation is different. And that's what I think makes it so tough. I think the trade deadline this year for the Cubs is going to be a lot like last season, where it's like the additions that they make aren't going to be flashy, and I like I think you look at like Kevin Gausman would be kind of flashy, right? Because he's kind of a bigger name. But like I start looking around, like the one name that's interesting to me, just looking at his peripherals and like what stands like I think Foster Griffin would be the perfect type of player that the Cubs would go after, because like that just seems like a Cubs trade. And I remember Sahad Sharma and Patrick Mooney, the Athletic, had reported that the Cubs had scouted him when he was in Japan, and he pitched. I don't know if you guys remember, he was pitching, I think, for the Giants in NPB in Japan, and when the Cubs played a tune-up game in Tokyo last season, I believe he started for them, and he shut them. I don't know if he shut them down, but he played them really, really well. The Cubs lineup really, really well at the Tokyo Dome, and it was kind of like, oh, who is this guy? Like, or what did this guy do? And he's been really, really good for the Nationals. And the one stat that to me is like really impressive about him is he has a 72% ground ball rate.
Oh my God,
with the Nationals. Like, you put that with the Cubs defense, like that puts a guy who has, I believe he has a 3.5 WAR according to Baseball Reference and a 3.08 ERA. Like, that's not a flashy sighting, right? Like, that's not Tarik Skubal. That's not like Reed Detmers even, or like that kind of player. But like on a Cubs team, like maybe that's an interesting guy that you can sign. And he's signed to a 1-year deal after Japan. I believe he's arbitration eligible. I can't remember like the logistics of a player coming back from Japan, like what it does for service time. So like, I think he's under club control. Go ahead, you got it.
Yeah, he's under club control through the 2030 season. He's not free until 2031. But also his ground ball rate is just 45%.
Oh, I'm looking at Baseball Savant. I had it different. Oh, okay.
He's in the 72nd percentile.
70. Thank you. That's what I was looking at. Yep. Thank you.
I mean, it's still 45% is still really good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you for correcting me on that. So like, but like that is a perfect. Yeah, I don't know ball. What an idiot. But that just seems like the type of guy where it's like, this is a Cubs team that when they're going to be buying, like they might take a shot at rentals, but they're clearly going to be trying to get guys that help them beyond this year, right? Like, this is the team that's theoretically their window is open and open for a few years, or open for multiple years, that you don't want to get just the guy for this year. But if you can get a Foster Griffin, if you can get
Joe Ryan or something. Yeah.
Joe Ryan, right? Like big thinking, like that helps you this year and beyond. That's why, like, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they have the package to pull it off, but like Mason Miller to me is not like an impossibility, right? Because like, this is a guy who's under control for multiple years. I don't think they have the package to compete with like the Brewers or Dodgers, but like that to me is clearly the deadline approach that they're taking. And that's why you have to look at targets more so, to me, at least, like Foster Griffin or guys with multiple years of control left.
So Andy, I mean, sticking along those lines, again, you're not saying, you're sourcing this, but like from your perspective, what is the perfect path? Throwing out names or whatever. I mean, what is it? Foster Griffin? Is it a couple relievers? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think so. And it's hard to, like, for me, guessing like what relievers they're going to get is so hard, because like, as we've seen, I feel like sometimes they go off the wall with guys that they get, right? Like, I don't think anyone saw Andrew Kittredge as the guy last year, and he ended up being a great trade deadline acquisition, right? Like, he was one of the best relievers down the stretch. Taylor Rogers was kind of out of nowhere last year when they got him. But I think you're right. Like, it has to be 2 to 3 relievers, just because you need the depth, you need the bulk options, and they need at least one starter, and it has to be a guy that's going to start one of those playoff games, because right now, if you line up your 2-man rotation for a wild card or 3-man rotation for a wild card, it's Matthew Boyd, and then after that, I think you have options.
Yeah, I think it's Shota and David Peterson right now. So,
but like,
yeah,
you don't feel great about any of those, right? And you don't want to start 3 lefties in a wild card round.
No,
like,
but so I'm glad you brought the point up about lefties because Foster
But
Griffin.
Foster Griffin's it's a lefty.
And that's what I think that if I were in a front office, this would be one of my big flaws. Is I just worry about being too left-handed in the rotation, in the bullpen, or in a lineup because it. Like you said, you don't. If you're starting in a wild card series, you don't want to start 3 lefties. But even if you get to a division series, you don't want to start 4 lefties in a 5-game series.
Right.
Really, all 5 games being started by lefties. That's not ideal. But then I was thinking about it a little bit, and I was like, well, the Phillies, their 2 best hitters are Schwarber and Harper.
And the Dodgers.
The Dodgers have, Kyle Tucker's not in that mix, but Shohei and Freddie Freeman.
The Brewers, and Max Muncy.
Yeah, Max Muncy. The Brewers have, Bryce Terang and Christian Yelich, and, Churio and William Contreras are great against lefties. But you kind of just go around a little bit. Like the Braves have Matt Olson. You have some lefties that can neutralize. And the Cubs last year, I think a big reason why they beat the Padres is because they had lefties. And they had to – Padres didn't have right-handed options because it was Ramon Laureano, I think, was hurt. So it was Ryan O'Hearn and some of the other guys had to play no matter what. Gavin Cheese, yeah. But I do worry about being too left-handed, and that's why I feel like a guy like Peralta or Holmes even, but Peralta or Gausman make a lot of sense because they're righties who miss bats, which the Cubs rotation, it's not a huge weakness, but they can certainly use a strikeout guy, and it's a righty, and I think it kind of mixes up the lefties.
Yeah, and with Freddy Peralta, I think I think of the rentals, I think that's the best case scenario for an extension. I don't think it would happen, but if you're thinking of who's the most likely to extend, it would probably be him because he's talked about extension A with the Brewers, B with the Mets, and he's already he signed an extension early on in his career with the Brewers. I don't think it's a total impossibility that he would sign one. I don't think it would happen, but if you're thinking again beyond 2026, that maybe is a factor, and he has familiarity with Craig Counsell.
Yeah,
it's insane looking at Freddy Peralta's numbers. So he started Game 1 for the Brewers last year against the Cubs, correct?
Yeah, Game 1 and Game 4, right? Yeah,
4. Yeah,
the first. Yeah,
his numbers he had a 2.7 ERA with a 3.64 FIP. And I don't know how much you guys read into FIP. Was it fielding independent pitching?
Fielding independent pitching. Yeah,
I do. Yes.
I mean, this year his ERA is 5. Even his FIP is almost a run higher at 4.5. This offseason's price for Freddie obviously is nowhere near what the price would be to acquire him at the deadline, especially with him being a free agent. But are you getting Brewers Freddy Peralta, or are you getting Mets Freddy Peralta? Right, and you hope maybe him reuniting with Craig and working with Tommy Hotovy and the Cubs pitching staff, brings back more of the Brewers Freddy. But even looking at his baseball savant page, it's not like it's jumping off the page at you. There's a lot of blue in there. His average exit velo is in the 67th percentile, which is good. His barrel percentage is in the 83rd percentile, which obviously is great. But everything else, it just seems very middle of the pack. So it's I guess his track record says he could start Game 1. But does this version of Freddy Peralta actually start Game 1 for the Cubs? Maybe just because the rotation is where it's at, but
Kyle, look at his expected ERA. It's over a run and a half lower than what his actual ERA is. So his peripheral numbers should have a 3.86 ERA. His actual ERA is 5.01. Like you said, FIP, take fielding out, 4.51. His expected FIP 4.27. So basically the underlying numbers, in layman's terms, are showing that Freddy Peralta has been unlucky this year. Well, he's also been unlucky because the Mets are I forget where they rank, but in the bottom third in teams in baseball. I think they might be all the way down to 29th in terms of some defensive metric. The Cubs are number 1. The Cubs are the best defense in baseball right now. And especially in the infield where, a guy like Peralta will, you figure, work because he gets a lot of weak contact when he's at his best. So yeah, everybody was happy. And I agree with this for David Peterson coming over. And, a big ground ball guy should benefit from a huge increase in defense. I think the same can be said for Freddy Peralta or Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes has a 55% ground ball rate. But yeah, either of those guys, and Holmes is pitching well this year, but either of those guys, it would be about as drastic of an upgrade as you can get coming from one of the worst defensive teams to the best. And I almost think of it like Skubal's more in the lines of like Randy Johnson in '98, Rick Sutcliffe in '84, Max Scherzer in '21,
like the CC Sabathia in '08.
That's like that, but Freddy Peralta, I think, is like, I don't think if Freddy Peralta came over and pitched like Randy Johnson in '98 or CC Sabathia in '08 and had like a sub-2 ERA, would anybody be surprised at all? If like say Freddy Peralta made 12 starts for the Cubs in August and September and had like a 1.9 ERA and went 6-1, like nobody would be surprised at all. And that's where I think you take the gamble, like Andy said, you maybe bet on yourself too that he wants to come here and sign an extension, and it could be a long-term thing. But Kyle, I think your point is an astute one too, of that, like, because of that, you might be able to get Peralta at like a discount. I don't know how much of a discount. I don't know exactly what those conversations would be like, but like the guy still has a 5 ERA and has struggled. This is clearly far and away like the worst year of his career statistically. There has to be some level of discount because he's also a rental and is only signed through this year. So I think that'll be a really interesting wrinkle.
Does it concern you that his K percentage from last year is down almost 6%? He's at 20. It's the lowest of his career.
Yeah, slightly, but I think that the Mets year has just been a mess. And go ahead, Andy.
I was just gonna say too, like, I mean, I think we've seen it right with like some of the like the offseason moves that the Mets have that they've done, right? Like letting go Pete Alonso and bringing in Jorge Polanco and Freddy Peralta, like all these their offseason acquisitions haven't worked, and like I'm curious, like how much getting into a new organization with like a new look and some familiarity with Craig Counsell, or like how much does that help Freddy Peralta? Because like the more I look at I dig into like his changeup was one of his better pitches, like a put away pitch for him in the past. Like it's getting hit a little bit more, but like the expected batting average on that is 236. Like it still should be a pretty darn good pitch, and the batting average against the changeup is almost 300. It was like 289, I think it was. So like he's running into the bad luck there. Like, does a new look do things change? Like every thing I look at, like it's just like slightly off. Right, the changeup's down 1.5 miles on average velocity. His arm angle was 38 degrees in 2025. It's down to 33. Like, are the Mets trying to get him at a lower slot, thinking like they can get something more out of him by doing that? Like, does he come to Chicago or does he go elsewhere? And someone's like, hey, go back to maybe a little higher arm slot. Like, it's just these little things that like are so minute that maybe getting into a new organization, trying new things, can help do that. And it's easier said than done. Like, but I agree with you, Tony, where it's like if he got traded to the Cubs or if he got traded anywhere else and just became like a stud for the final month and a half or 2 months, I would not be surprised at all. Especially going into contract year, like this guy's trying to get paid.
Mm-hmm. So Kyle, you wear a little bit different hat than Andy and I, and you kind of consume these games more as a fan. What is your perfect trade deadline path for the Cubs?
I mean, I think it's exactly what you guys were saying, to be honest, and maybe I'm just thinking too logically, not to toot my own horn, but you look at their pitching staff, and specifically, like, yeah, you're right. If they're in the NL wild card, who's starting game one? I mean, yeah, you said Shota, David Peterson, maybe Boyd. I don't know, but it's like that's an all left-handed, not an ideal option there. And if you advance, you definitely have probably 3 lefties starting in the division series. And if you win, like who's closing these games? So I think it's really everything you guys were saying. I mean, in terms of starters, you look at teams who are out of it, the Mets, the Giants, the Rockies don't have anyone that you would probably want. The Dodgers acquired Andy's boy, Seth Halverson, who would have maybe been nice. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess another name to throw out there is on the reliever side is I like on the Giants. Again, I don't know his contract situation, but Ryan Walker.
I thought you were going to say Caleb Killian. I thought for sure you were going to say Caleb Killian.
Imagine if the Cubs acquired him.
In the minors, isn't he?
No.
Yeah, dude, he's in the minor leagues right now.
Even better.
He got option.
Yeah.
Did he really?
Oh no. Okay. I think he just came back up recently. He was in the minors. I mean, he still has a 7.5 ERA this year.
I know, but he's been a guy in the past. So I know he's definitely struggled this year. I thought it was more like 5. I didn't know it was 7. But so now I'm looking at I remember him in 2024. He had a great year, but he's a guy that I feel like would be a perfect buy low candidate, where he's struggled this year mightily with the Giants, but he's a guy who has back end experience. So last year he saved 17 games for the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a savior. And sorry if I came out and I'm trying to think of guys that you haven't said already. I think Kittredge, Jason Adam, Ryan Abreu, those would be the A-list.
Yeah.
Of quote unquote A-list type of guys to acquire. But looking at maybe buy low option guys, I don't know if this is a Mike Soroka type of guy, but Ryan Walker would be a guy who it's okay, you're not trading much. Maybe if he works in the Cubs pitch lab and all of a sudden he's your rover like Palencia was last year.
Yeah.
That's if Palencia is healthy. And sticking on the Giants, Robbie Ray, looking at his baseball savant, it's a lot of blue, but I mean, he's putting up good numbers. I know his FIP was a little higher than his ERA this year, but again, he has a track record. He could potentially be a number 1 lefty though. So that, it kind of it's a counterproductive to what I was just saying about acquiring a right-handed pitcher. So it really is if you think of it from that standpoint, if you're looking for a right-handed pitcher, it's Gausman, it's Freddy Peralta, and it's Clay Holmes. And the question with Clay Holmes though is that he hasn't pitched since the middle of May. I think he's actually making a rehab start today. I don't know if it's his first rehab start or not. But
yeah, I don't know if it's first, but he has another start today. Yeah.
But it's okay, yeah, that's nice, but you don't 100% know. He hasn't pitched in it'll be close to 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
By the time you're acquiring, so what are you getting? Does that lower the price a little bit? Maybe. I don't know.
It might. I think with Holmes, the nice thing is it's not an arm injury. He broke his leg because he got hit by a 100-mile-an-hour comebacker. So I think that's the nice part is bones.
He just had a broken leg.
Yeah, he just had. I mean, it's funny to say, but it's true. Bones heal in a certain amount of time. It's not a shoulder injury that you're not sure what it's going to be, or even Palencia's elbow or Hunter Harvey having the worst tricep strain that anybody has ever experienced. I can't believe that we just are not going to see him again, or I'm assuming because we're not hearing updates. But another guy, Kyle, while you were talking, because Ryan Walker is exactly the kind of name that is kind of in that tier below the other guys I mentioned. That why not take a flyer on him? But what about Mark Leiter Jr., Andy? What about bringing your boy back?
Yeah, right. I mean, he's pitching with the A's. That's gonna be a team that's probably gonna be solid. Yeah. I mean, the thing I always think about too is even Michael Soroka, and as bad as that was for the Cubs, given that Soroka only pitched those 2 innings and then got hurt, that was what would you guys categorize that in terms of starting pitching acquisitions that was available last year, right? Probably at best a B-, maybe a C+ level acquisition for the starting rotation.
Yeah.
If he would have been healthy, you would have said that's probably a C+, B-. The cost of that was pretty significant, right? Christian Franklin, who's in AAA, we got added to the 40-man by the Nationals this winter, so you're potentially a fringe major leaguer right now. And then the big one was Ronnie Cruz, who is now a top 100 prospect. So the price of even a rental starting pitcher is pretty darn high. If you were to make that trade this year, right? You're probably thinking of I'm trying to think of a AAA outfielder for the Cubs right now off the top of my head, but
BJ Murray,
or something like that. Plus I don't know, maybe a Juan Tomas or someone that's probably going to be a top 100 prospect in a year or two. That's the price, and that's pretty darn high price to pay for a guy that you're not even sure would start a playoff game for you, and will be gone at the end of the season. The price for pitching is just so damn high, and I think it'll be even higher this year because there's so many teams in contention, right? If a team that is selling, it's what 3 or 4 teams right now, or 5 teams, whatever. If you have a known commodity and you can shop them around to 12 different teams, well, whoever it's going to go to the highest bidder, and I'm not sure if the Cubs will be able to match that or will want to match that. Again, going back to the point of you're only going to probably be guaranteed 2 games in the playoffs.
So, in counterpoint to that, Andy, if not now, when? and that's the
but like to me, like, is it now? Like is a team that has shown a ton of flaws, is a team that that is piecing together a pitching staff. Like, is this? I guess what I'm getting at is it? Do you believe that this is a team that can win the World Series with adding just a Tarik Skubal and a Mason Miller?
I
do. If you just added those two guys.
I do, because and yes, obviously Skubal and Miller are like at the top of the range, but I do believe that because I can't remember a time where it's been this clear of really like kind of maybe like any team, but like the Cubs especially, that there's some stats somebody tweeted it out. I can't remember who, but it was like overall WAR by the players in their roster. Yeah, it was like position player.
I saw that. Yeah,
Kyle, maybe you sent that to us, right? Or
I don't know, but I saw
it was like 22. It was like 22 position player, or 22 WAR on the position player side for the Cubs, and then it was like 2.1 on the pitching side.
Which is like position player WAR. Cubs ranked first. PCA is a huge part of that, but obviously they have just a very strong defensive team and offense outside of one 30-game stretch. And then pitching wise, they were like in the bottom 5 in terms of WAR. And Kyle, you brought this point up a bunch in the spot, is like their starting rotation is basically most of the season has had guys that are like, but like right around 0 or sub-0 WAR pitchers. So yeah, I do think that like addressing pitching in the most impactful way, so let's turn them into. Go ahead, Kyle. What is it?
So it's their batting WAR is 20.4, which would be, if I'm scanning quick, that would be the highest by any team. And their pitching WAR is 2.7, which would be the third lowest behind the Nationals and the Astros.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like, there's just like this clear need, right? But Andy, you're right that like Ronnie Cruz, Christian Franklin, you're paying a price for a guy who Soroka ends up getting hurt, so on. Christian Franklin's a 26-year-old outfielder who has a sub 400 percentage in the minors. At best, absolute best case scenario is he turns into a Reed Johnson fourth outfield type that's a right-handed hitting platoon guy, right? Like at best, he's kind of like a Lane Thomas, who I mentioned as a possible like right-handed hitter. That's the absolute best career path for him, and probably not going to happen really like that because he's 26. Ronnie Cruz only 19. He also hasn't performed super well in the minors, and he's in the low minors. I think those are the guys that you give up on to go out and try. And I think because you have to be aggressive, and we've seen Jed be a little bit more aggressive in recent years. I mean, the Bregman signing, the Edwin Cabrera trade, the Kyle Tucker trade a year and a half ago, like I think there is a time not to push your chips necessarily all in. I'm not saying they should go Skubal and Mason Miller and some of these other moves, but like I think this team has shown a level of resilience, and you also feel like if you can, even if you're in the wildcard series, hosting at Wrigley is such an advantage over going somewhere else that I think like why not? Like why not make a run at this and give it a shot, because you don't know if 27 is even going to be a real normal season. So, if you don't do it this year and you're like holding on to your prospects, then 28 might be your next like real shot. And by then your core guys are 2 years older, and you just never know what'll happen. Right. And so I don't know. So I feel like that's huge. And when you address pitching, you have a better chance at possibly chasing the Brewers down than you would if you didn't address pitching in a major way for the final 2 months.
Yeah, like all of that makes sense, but like I guess the way I look at it too is like what Jed Hoyer has said in the past, right? Where your playoff odds dictate to how aggressive you're going to be, or your World Series odds dictate how aggressive you're going to be. And like when you add, let's say you add a Mason Miller and a Tarik Skubal, and like that's it, right? Because in this hypothetical fantasy land we're living in, you start game 1 of a wild card Tarik Skubal. Best case scenario, you win game 2, so you win those 2 games. Tarik Skubal is again probably not pitching to game 3, right? At best case scenario, in the DS.
I mean,
unless you're Matthew Boyd.
No, he could pitch. He could probably pitch game 2 because he throws on a Tuesday, has Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday off. He pitch in game 2 on that Sunday, on perfectly regular rest. So he could go game 2 and conceivably game 5 in a DS.
What percentage would you put Skubal actually at? I think it's less than 3.
Yeah, it's like 1 or 2%. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't think that's a feasible option.
All right.
So then you But then going into like this wormhole that I'm going into. So you start in best case scenario game 1 and then game 2 of a DS, which would right now I think would be against the Dodgers, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're starting probably your number 3 starter in game 1 against the Dodgers on the road. Then you're starting Tarik Skubal again on game 2. And then you're going back to this rotation that we've talked about with all its flaws. And I know it's at Wrigley, and I know it's these great there's these other things going on against the Dodgers. Like what I'm getting at is like you're probably best case scenario guaranteed 2 starts with Tarik Skubal. Like I don't know if adding Tarik Skubal suddenly means you can beat the Dodgers in a 5-game playoff series.
I agree. I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think honestly,
and I think that's why it's different. Like if they were 3 games out of the division right now, and you could say you add Tarik Skubal and Mason Miller, that's 100% catchable, right? Like they play the Brewers enough that they can catch them up, and sure they can with the 7-game deficit, but you can catch them up where you get that bye where suddenly you're starting Tarik Skubal game 1, game 4 in the DS. You're facing a team that has gone through the wild card that is conversely starting their 3 and 4 starters against you. You have a chance of moving on to the CS a lot easier. That's why it's easier to stomach going for a Tarik Skubal because you line them up. You lose the variability of that first playoff round, and you're able to line up Tarik Skubal or your ace guy, Joe Ryan, whoever you want to be, to go farther. And that's why I just don't think that they're gonna go all in. Like I agree, if not now, when? But like the added round of like 2016 was a different team because they were clearly far and away the best team, right? And you knew that they were setting up to home field advantage, and they had all these things going for them. Whereas like this is a team that's a wild card team. Like at the end of the day, it's a wild card team that will be going on the road for the DS no matter what, at a disadvantage with having their pitching not lined up. So like, if not now, when? Well, is this really the now, right? Like and yes, 2027 is a question mark. 2028 might not be the now, but like, is this really a great now? I don't know the answer, and I think that's the answer that the Cubs are going to have to answer for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing like about say the Cubs were in first place, like say, or even if say they had a 3-game lead in the division, would you have the same argument?
No, I would feel
I would feel no. If they were in first place, you'd have to go after Tarik Skubal.
But what's the difference if you lose in the NLDS or NLCS? Like you're gonna have to face Dodgers.
Because you're guaranteed eventually 2 starts in a DS round where you're probably more likely to win against a team that's weakened in the DS. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and you have home field advantage in the DS, which, as you brought up, Andy, that's huge, and possibly home field advantage in the CS if you end up getting the 1 seed or end up not playing the 1 seed. But that is also huge, especially because we've seen how Wrigley can be such an advantage.
Because and even I keep talking about like Tarik Skubal game 1, game 2 of a wild card in a DS. Realistically, you're only guaranteed 1 playoff start with Tarik Skubal.
Yeah,
it's a wild card. Like he might have a bad day and you're out of it.
But I'm saying the same thing. Like if you won the division, you're still only guaranteed 1 playoff start. But the division series. So like, what's the difference? If it really what I'm getting into is like it doesn't matter where you start in the playoffs, whether it's the wild card or the division series. It comes down to, do you think you can? If you add him, do you think you could win the World Series no matter what your path is? Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what it should come down to?
No, but like but what I'm getting at is like the wild card adds because in 2 games anything can happen, or 3 games anything can happen. You're more. It's a more controlled environment in the 5-game series against a team that has gone through the wild card where they're already down 2 or 3 guys, or excuse me, 2 or 3 starters. So like that's where it adds it favors up more for the team that has the bye, as we saw last year, right? Like I think if the Cubs had Matthew Boyd, Jameson Taillon lined up for game 1 and game 2 perfectly, or if they had their rotation lined up perfectly for game 1, game 2 against the Brewers, maybe it's a little bit different series. I don't know if they beat them, but like it creates a trickle down effect of they're able to be in a better situation.
Yeah.
I agree. It's plus like yes, you can lose in the DS, you can lose in the wild card, but like you could be going all in and losing the wild card where it's like it's just one more round that you have to go through. I don't know like how to like better describe it. It's like you just have to go through one more hurdle. Like right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
everyone's going through 2 hurdles. Exactly. Suddenly you're going through 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean you're winning 13 instead of 11 games. So yeah, it's tougher. It's a tougher road for sure.
So yeah, it's just if they're a first place team, I think it's like clear as day. Like you're going after Tarik Skubal, but I just don't know if you're asking me as like just me in my opinion, I think they should go after Tarik Skubal. But if I'm thinking of like how they think about it and how the Cubs think about it, I just don't see how they justify going after Tarik Skubal and Mason Miller, given everything that they've described about how they look at playoff percentages and trade deadlines.
I mean, I know we're going long, so we can wrap this up. But can you imagine if they somehow acquired both of them? I mean, they would have no farm system. To acquire Mason Miller, I don't know how anybody's going to acquire him. He's got like a zillion years of control left, and he's the best closer like ever here. Tony's got to go pee. How are they going to acquire him?
They're not like that's well if they acquire one, that's all they're acquiring. They're like, I don't think any team's acquiring two. Like the one team that could probably acquire both would be the Brewers and the Brewers, excuse me, because they have one of the top farm systems. Maybe the Dodgers too, because I think they have the number one farm system.
9 guys in the top 100.
Right, like those are the types of teams that could acquire them, but like the Cubs just would be back into the situation where they were like around 2019, 2020, where it's like you're seeing the end of the bridge, right? Like the bridge is there, and it's like, how do you augment that, or how do you supplement the farm system? Where as a big market team, you don't have the extra draft picks, you don't have the extra international money. Like you're in a situation where you're probably gonna have to look at selling some guys or trading some guys that are scheduled to be big pieces. So like that's kind of the trouble.
I just don't understand how anybody or why I understand why the Padres would. Pardon me. I understand why other teams would try to acquire Mason Miller. I just don't understand why the Padres would get rid of him. Yeah, maybe to just unless you're getting just an absolute fleecing, right? Like he's so good. He's such a game changer. It's an automatic 0 when when he comes in the game.
Well, and you also, if you're the Padres, you gave up is DeVries the second best prospect in baseball right now?
I think he's number one.
He's number one.
Hold on, I have it pulled up.
Just a year ago, you traded for this guy, and you gave up the number 3 prospect in baseball at the time, he's number 2 right now. And you lost a playoff series, and now you're not making the playoffs this year. I feel like I agree, Kyle. You can't. If I'm the Padres, I'm not trading Mason Miller. It would take a ridiculous haul because to give up what they gave up for him and see nothing over the span of 2 years and you're going to get less for him than what you gave up to. That would be.
I mean, he's not a free agent until he's eligible the next 4 seasons, but he's not a UFA until after the 2030 season.
Yeah,
that's like never going to get here. That's so far away.
It might not if like climate change continues to go the way it's been. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I thought you were going to say the lockout. Now you just went deep cut.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, there are other things in life than baseball. Not many other things.
Patrick Kane.
Yes, Patrick Kane, and that's
News
it.
to me. All right. Well, we went on a great trade deadline tangent. I think we could wrap it up there. We'll save that guy Rock for next episode. We have some other fun topics that we didn't get to today that I think we can get to the next few weeks. Although I think the next couple episodes are going to be very trade deadline heavy. So thanks guys for doing this. This was a lot of fun. For Tony and Kyle, I'm Andy. Thanks as always for tuning in to the Windy City Breakdown. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in.